Here at ASEE, educators from far and wide come together to share ideas to bring back to their home institutions. Industry and academia work alongside each other to bring novel tools and approaches into the classroom. Today on ASEE TV, we are highlighting the innovative ways engineering educators are bringing their curricula to the cutting edge of the field. Hi, I'm Joe Pfotenhauer, back again for one last episode of ASEE TV before we all head back home. We're focusing today on some of the most groundbreaking topics in STEM education and how they will shape the future of the field.
You really have to figure out the right questions to ask to be able to get the information that you need.
Mohammadi-Aragh will join us in the studio to weigh the pros and cons of using generative AI in STEM classrooms.
Who is creating the technology? What is the technology? How it works? What is needed for the technology to function? And how it is impacting humans.
And to close out this year's show, Yash Tadimalla will sit down with us to share insights from his interdisciplinary research in computer science and sociology. We'll also highlight 4 universities from around the world who are pioneering innovative approaches to STEM education. Between today's show and all our shows throughout the week, there's been so much amazing ASEE content for you to see. And if you want to make sure you haven't missed anything, you can keep watching ASEE TV on screens around the Oregon Convention Center, in your room at select hotels, on the ASEE 2024 annual meeting website, and on YouTube and X, formerly known as Twitter. Let's kick off today's episode by learning about how you can bring new interactive experiences into your classrooms through VR labs and simulation learning.
ThermoVR specifically is a virtual laboratory for understanding thermodynamics. So it allows a student to manipulate the heat and the sort of volume constraints, pressure in a chamber containing virtual water in order to just sort of play around with the physical properties of water and to understand, at what point under these conditions does the liquid water change to steam, or at what point do I hit sort of the triple point where I have water in 3 different states all at the same time. And so it gives students a way to experience something that would be pretty difficult, pretty expensive to do, in person.
What we're hoping to mine from the data that we're expecting to get back is a learning curve. We were just looking at the fact that there's a very big difference between a novice in encountering information and an expert encountering information, how they behave. So we're hoping that we can see that learning process happen. As an instructor, you want to see that because you want to know what are they struggling with specifically, how could I intervene and help make it easier, and you can do that across different classes of people, different groups. So I think that feature of it as an assessment tool, giving us feedback where the learning is happening, is really valuable, and I see that as a game changer for STEM education.
The use of artificial intelligence in the classroom has absolutely exploded over the past year, and educators have had to quickly adapt to find creative ways to bring this technology into the classroom. So here to discuss the use of generative AI in education is Mohammadi-Aragh. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So what are some of the major challenges in education that you believe generative AI can address, and how?
Awesome. So one of the major challenges in education is the personalized learning that we don't have. So really in the traditional education setting, it's kind of a one-size-fits-all. I'm lecturing to my class, I may have some additional work that students can complete, but it's really just, this is what's presented. So with AI, we can have students explore on their own. They can use AI chatbots as kind of tutors to help them explore more in depth. We're looking at some systems that could identify where the students are and provide more customized feedback to help coach them almost to where they need to be. And so I think that is really exciting. I think as a faculty perspective, we have a very heavy workload, and so being able to use generative AI to reduce our workload and also at the same time improve what we're doing. So I have ideas for a lesson. If I ask the right questions, maybe I can enhance that lesson with better activities and things like that.
And you were telling me a lot of that is learning what the correct question is to ask, the correct prompt, correct?
Yeah. So there's an area, prompt engineering, that's kind of coming up, thinking about what are we asking the generative AI systems, because you really have to figure out the right questions to ask to be able to get the information that you need.
Now, when it comes to teachers, are there things that they can take from generative AI that will help in terms of classroom management and their own professional development?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've used generative AI to help me with my voice. So I'm very much an academic faculty member, and there's times that I want to talk about things at maybe the general public level, and sometimes I struggle with that. But I'm able to take what I want to say and ask the system, can you put this in a voice that someone else can understand.
Explain it to a 12-year-old.
Explain it to a 12-year-old, yeah, absolutely.
Right. I get that.
Yeah.
What are the ethical considerations? Because you hear about this a lot. I mean, it's this incredible tool, but with great power comes great responsibility, right? So what are the big ethical considerations, especially as it relates to data privacy and bias or perceived bias?
Yeah, so with data privacy, I think that just knowing that you're putting information into a system that you don't always know what's happening to it, it's a black box unless you have your own custom models. And so being aware that you don't want to put student data in there, maybe if you're putting information in, make sure that it's anonymized or de-identified. I also think, like with the bias, our education system and engineering, there's underrepresentation, and so that can also show up in the system and the results that are coming out. So being aware of biases and looking for them, and not just rubber stamping what comes out, and even if it's like mostly correct, like just understanding that there's a lot of bias that can be introduced.
All right, looking down the road here, 5 years, 10 years from now, maybe even further down, what do you think the impact of generative AI on education will be? Do you think it's positive? How do we keep it positive?
Yeah, so I think it is going to be really positive. I think we need to keep in mind, think about like what generative AI can do for us and how it can supplement what we're doing. I don't think that replacing humans is the path. I think that we're going to look at it just like we do with computers that we use now. Like, what does a computer do and that better than me, and how can I use it to improve what I do? And so I think the same with generative AI. What can it do better than us? How can it supplement what we're doing? How can it assist us? And I think that it'll stay really positive if we're in that direction.
All right, well, that's great to hear. Mohammadi-Aragh, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And we'll hear more about the ethical considerations of AI use later from Yash Tadimalla. But now, with tech driven by big data like machine learning tools becoming more and more prominent, data scientist skills are in high demand. So let's go down to Dartmouth, where the DIFUSE project is giving students across STEM disciplines a chance to build their skills early in their studies.
We noticed this gap between students needing knowledge in data science, but students not majoring in data science and so not getting that knowledge. And with all the problems there's not enough time in your schedule. Students don't necessarily know that they need this knowledge. And so that's why we created this project. DIFUSE stands for Data Science Infused into Undergraduate STEM Education. Data science can be a major at many institutions or a minor, so you can add on a number of classes to what you're already studying. What we're doing though is we're integrating data science into already existing courses so that students don't need to take additional coursework in order to get the expertise. We care deeply about education here at Dartmouth, about teaching and learning, and this project really enhances how students enter the job market. The world is full of data, more and more each day, and students need to be able to make sense and meaning of all that data, regardless of their chosen field of study, regardless where they end up.
Well, with each ASEE meeting, there's a lot of new and exciting changes, and one of them is the election of a new president. So with that in mind, we want to welcome the new president-elect of ASEE. This is Grant Crawford. Thank you for joining us today.
All right, happy to be here, Joe.
Well, I can't help but notice one thing. You're wearing right now a retired U.S. Army pin
Yes.
because before you were in academia, you were in the U.S. Army. Can you talk to us about that experience and how it has influenced your career in academia?
Yeah. Well, it's had a tremendous impact. It was, and if you go to the Tuesday plenary, tomorrow. I'll talk a little bit about that. But that was my pathway into engineering, was through the U.S. Army, specifically through West Point. And so, yeah, just getting in and getting that initial degree through West Point opened doors for me that I would have never had opened.
And now you're working with the engineers of tomorrow. And I found this interesting. You took a group of students on a trip through Europe. You went to Italy, Switzerland, Germany, I understand.
Yes.
And not just to study engineering, but also art and experience the culture. Why do you think an experience like that is important for young engineers?
Of course, there's all types of semester abroad programs, and I wanted to have a very unique 2-week summer opportunity for our students where we could go and, as you said, we're going to look at art, we're going to look at engineering, we're going to experience some of the culture, but I want the students to get to a point where they don't see those as 3 separate things, but things that are really integrated and tied together. And so we look at a piece of art, say, in a classic that we looked at when we were in Florence, is Michelangelo's statue of David. And you look at that, but then you start to notice some things, and why is there a tree trunk down by his leg? Well, you need some support, you need some strength in it. There's some engineering that goes into that piece of art. And of course, experiencing the culture and how the art is integrated into the society, or the engineering is integrated into those different cultures in various ways. Of course, you get to somewhere like Florence, and the art is everywhere. It's in the architecture. You can't just build a tower, you have to build an ornate tower, right? But to see that and appreciate it and see it firsthand. Sure, we get up into Germany, we go to Munich, end up in Munich at the Deutsches Technical Museum, and they can see the largest technical museum in the world, just all types of history of innovation and engineering examples. But something we also do in Germany that I think is equally important is we take a day and we go to Dachau concentration camp. And they can see a very nefarious use of engineering. And we have those types of discussions because we want to produce engineers that are going to be good for society and good for the planet. So it's a very, I think, powerful trip, and the students all come back, I think, transformed from that experience.
Building off that last comment you made, you've talked about and written about global engineers. What does that term mean, and is that going to be a focus for you going forward?
So I think it's, and I think if you probably can't look it up and find one single definition. So when I think of a global engineer, I think of an engineer with a mindset not just in their local community, but understanding what they do and how it can impact or have impact much further and outside of just that local geographic area. The solutions we design, we gotta have to be careful, right? Because we extract, I want to extract materials for this. Well, there's some mining that's going on over here, and is that really the best material to use? Is that what's the impact that my design decisions can have on a broader geographic area? So being cognizant of that, I think, is more and more important as we realize, and again, if you're in the plenary on Tuesday, we realize that we are living on a planet that is filling up, right? The population is growing, and there's a limit. There's a limit based on how we do things now as to what this planet can sustain. And if we don't innovate and change how we do things, then we're in trouble. But I'm not a pessimist, I'm an optimist. I know these students, this generation will figure out those challenges and will transform how we live so that we can continue to thrive, that the planet can thrive, that the plants, the animals, the sea creatures can thrive on this planet.
Well, on that optimistic note, I'll thank you for your time. Grant Crawford, thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
It's important to prepare the next generation of engineers to solve problems on a global scale. At Beijing's Tsinghua University, their International Center for Engineering Education is developing innovative solutions that will help solve pressing problems in China and throughout the world.
清华大学历来高度重视工程教育，刘贤洲、张威、张光斗一批工程教育家，为工程教育做出了开创性的贡献。近10余年来，清华大学先后设立了工程教育研究中心。 与中国工程院联合成立了联合国教科文组织国际工程教育中心，即 ICEE， 又当选为全国高校工程教育学学科建设联盟的理事长单位。 通过开展课题研究、撰写专题报告、发表学术论著、举办论坛研讨等等多种形式，在促进工程教育改革、实施卓越工程师教育培养计划、推动工程教育国际合作、构建中国特色、世界水平的工程教育新体系等方面做出了积极的贡献。我们也希望与美国工程教育学会等组织增进合作与交流，共同为构建全球工程教育共同体、促进全球工程教育高质量发展做出更大的贡献。
STEM fields are dynamic and constantly evolving, and so STEM education has to evolve quickly alongside them. It can be hard to keep up with the latest and greatest, so let's see how ASEE members stay on top of what's new.
I love ASEE because I think it's a conference of two halves. So you have your sessions, your poster presentations, your presentations where you can learn about all of the latest projects and things that are happening in engineering ed and get up to date with the latest research. But I also love it because it is really built around networking. So I could hang out here in the exhibit hall, in the hallways, literally any time of the day, and run into someone where I can spark up a conversation, either meet an old friend or meet a new acquaintance, get to know what they're doing, and I can spark collaborations. And that's why it's my favorite conference to attend, because you just meet a lot of really interesting people and get to know new colleagues.
I just left a session where they discussed about using virtual reality and mixed reality to enhance student learning, to make students more involved in the educational process, to get hands-on learning process compared to project-based learning, curriculum-based learning, so it has been fun so far.
I would say ASEE is really great because my job is with the Center for Teaching at Vanderbilt, and there is a very, very specific community of like STEM education, which it's really important to be plugged into because like half of faculty in the world teach STEM, and the way that they teach STEM can be pretty different, and the way we talk about it is pretty different than like the broader community and humanities people. So for me, as an engineer, I love being here because it's like the combination of the engineering world and the education world. And that's kind of what my job is to translate the education world and pedagogical strategies to STEM people.
This is the largest conference in our field by quite a margin, and the amount of people that this conference brings speaks to that. You know, part of not only going to the technical sessions is also meeting all the people who are here and engaging with all the people who are here, just connecting on research, things that they've been up to, and staying in touch with the research directions they're interested in. I think that's one of the most beneficial things of having this many people in one space in the same general research area.
As we know from our conversation with Grant Crawford, interdisciplinarity and cultural exchange are important priorities in engineering education. Soon we'll wrap up this year's show by talking to Yash Tadimalla about his research at the crossroads of computer science and sociology. But before that, we will visit two universities who value societal impact alongside STEM excellence. First up is the University of Texas at El Paso.
The University of Texas at El Paso is America's leading Hispanic-serving university. We have about 24,000 students. We're an R1 research university, so we're in the top 5% of universities in the country when it comes to research.
Probably the one we're most well known for from a international, national standpoint is advanced manufacturing, and that's really a thread that goes all the way through our college. Regionally, we actually have a large group working on water, and this is water reuse, water desalination, and we work really closely with El Paso Water. In terms of cybersecurity, we have a large program in our computer science department that includes both cyber defense, but also cyber operations. We work closely with the DoD as well as the DOE on that.
We're actually the only top-tier research university that has kept its open access mission. We are a friendly, welcoming community, and we meet every student where they are and help them to become a better version of themselves. 'Themselves. And that is the beauty of UTEP.
Let's go now to Navajo Technical University. They're building engineering programs with Navajo people in mind. They're the only tribal college with ABET accredited engineering studies and are now expanding further into PhD programs.
That's part of who we are as Navajo people.
Being in Indian education or Navajo education, I always saw a need for more professionals in the STEM field. You don't see too many engineers or too many mathematicians or IT people, and that's a tremendous need for Navajo. So, and then I thought, why don't we do those programs here at NTU, and that we focus on STEM programs.
Like I said, we're still the only tribal college with ABET accredited engineering. We became the first tribal college just recently that we're going to be starting the first PhD program. And in January, we're going to start the first Master of Science in Electrical Engineering program at a tribal college. After that will be a PhD in electrical engineering. And so, because it's important for us to be able to make Navajo engineering faculty, because we want faculty that can inspire other, Navajo children to say that, yeah, I can be an engineer.
Advancing STEM research equitably takes well-rounded and interdisciplinary knowledge, and to truly understand the impacts of novel technologies like AI, we have to understand the ways that inequities can form and be exacerbated by this tech. Yash Tadimalla is joining us now to discuss this and your research, because Yash, you're pursuing a doctorate in both computer science and sociology. Explain to us why and how these two things meld together as it relates to artificial intelligence.
That's a question I get a lot. For me, it is the question that when someone asks me this question, I'm like, why not? Because so much about the reason why we make technology is for the technology to be used by someone, and that means humans are going to interact with it, right? And humans are not these individual beings that are isolated from society. We work in society. The way we navigate our lives, we continuously negotiate with power structures, and technology is a part of those negotiations and how we negotiate power in the world we live in. And for me, it was really important to study and understand how AI as a technology, which has been around for so long, has become a part of this conscious of public, how that it's going to change the way we navigate society, and how in turn the technology will be impacted by it.
Okay, so as it does change society, how do we keep it human-centered AI, keeping that human perspective there, as to where it's not just this technology ruling over us? Humans are still at the center of the experience.
So the way I think about it is through the lens of understanding the AI ecosystem. Who is creating the technology? What is the technology? How it works? What is needed for the technology to function? And how it is impacting humans? How it is impacting, what are its impacts in general? With AI, we can think about the people who are creating AI are often software engineers in industry, in scientific labs, in educational settings, and the technology itself, the infrastructure needed for semiconductors. I mean, there's a reason why we all want to buy NVIDIA stocks, right? And cloud-based technologies, and how it impacts people is the way surveillance happens, the way policing and security work, the way we would order food, the way it's permeating everything in the social fabric. And for me, it's important to think about how identity of a person shows up in all these layers and how it is shaped by all these layers.
Okay, so considering all the many different identities that are out there in the world, I mean, every person's different, every person's unique. How do we make sure that they are represented equitably when it comes to artificial intelligence?
So identity is talked about in a different way in cognitive psychology, in sociology, in engineering education, computer science education. For me, the way I think about identity is, how do I think of myself internally, and what does the society tell me I am? right? It's often a balance of those two forces, and I pull a lot of sociology work on intersectionality. Intersectionality is a word that was coined by Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw. It comes from Black feminist theory, and what it says is that every person's identity can be thought of as an intersection of their race, gender, sex, disability status, citizenship status, where you're from, your life experiences, and how a combination of those gives you access or creates barriers to power or to education or to technology, to AI. So I think that's the lens I think about when I'm thinking, how does an individual have access to AI and learning with AI, and how in turn AI can change that, you know? What if AI starts to move or change the way the systems and structures in society are? What if one identity suddenly becomes the dominant identity?
So, knowing that there are these questions and these unknowns, if you had to look into your crystal ball and say, it's going to be good, it's going to be bad, are you optimistic about the future of AI and its impact on humans?
Yes, I think so. I'm a computer scientist, so I'm always optimistic about technology, and it's important to remember that technology inherently is not good and bad, but it is a tool, and the way you design the tool impacts how it is used, right? So I think if we have more diverse voices and perspectives, more identities represented in the very creation of AI, we can inherently change the values and what it will be used for. And I think the purpose should be for societal good.
Well, it's great that we have your voice out there to hopefully help guide the future of AI. Yash, Tadimalla, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Well, that's a wrap for us here at ASEE TV. It's been an amazing week learning about all the amazing ideas brewing at this meeting. We've had some incredible interviews, saw some fantastic sessions, and you can revisit all of it at any time. You can keep watching ASEE TV on screens around the Oregon Convention Center, in your room at select hotels, on the ASEE 2024 annual meeting website, and on YouTube and X, formerly known as Twitter. ASEE TV will be back for the 2025 annual meeting in Montreal. We can't wait to see you there. Thanks so much for watching our show. Have safe travels home. I'm Joe Vithiathil, signing off.